We have seen about the brightness and contrast in our previous classes. Now let's see what is color. Three basic terms which we use to define color are hue, saturation and luma. Hue is the name we call color, saturation is intensity of the color and luma is brightness of the color. Now let's get in detail about the color tab. This is our edit timeline. You cannot make any edit changes here. You have to go to edit page to make any changes in clips. What gallery does is I can save my grades here and apply to the other shots. For example, this shot comes in 4 different places of the timeline. There is no point in grading it again and again. What I do is I just store my grade here and apply it to the other shots. We won't be covering about LUTs in this episode. We'll check this later. Color correction tools are divided into 3 segments. First set of tools are meant for primary grading. Primary grading is something like which affects the overall image. Second set of tools are meant for secondary grading. You use secondary grading when you want to affect selective areas of the image. And third is meant for keyframes, scopes and information. Lift is dark areas, gamma is midtone and gain is highlights. If I adjust lift and make color correction here, I am affecting more of the darkest part of the images than the highlight areas. Gamma is more of the midtones, gain is about the highlights. You can refer offset as an exposure or brightness. Here you have 2 different tabs. You got contrast here, increase or decrease it, and the pivot. Pivot works with the contrast. Pivot determines from which point you want the contrast to occur. You might be familiar with saturation. Hue is like shifting the color. I will explain about the luma mix later. Positive value of the temp would add more yellow to the frame, while negative adds blue. Similarly, positive value of tint gives magenta and negative gives green. This is very effective when you work with the skin tones. Mix of minus values would soften the image, plus would sharpen the image. Shadow and highlights. This highlight feature is very effective when you try to control the bleak sky. Now we have seen first set of color correction tools. Let's grade a shot using only primary grading. Here we have our secondary color correction tools. This is where we isolate a particular portion of the image and grade. By now you might be familiar with the curves. Curves are just like primary bars, black point, midpoint and white point. When you release the gang button, you can make individual color corrections like adding yellow to the highlights, adding magenta to the midtones, removing red from the shadow areas. You see many dots here, indicating that there are many curve menus. You can view these menus here as well. Each one behaves differently. What if we wanted to make only the grass look different? I'm okay with green, I just wanted to enhance the saturation of it. Hue versus luma. This curve helps me to increase brightness only on the desired hue. Luma versus saturation curve. I can reduce saturation only in the shadow area or midtone area. This indicates the more saturated part of the image and this indicates less saturated part of the image. Next thing we have here is qualifier. This allows us to isolate particular color so we could grade it differently. Let me key here. Just play with use saturation and luminance settings until you get proper key. Now only the white area will get affected. Cleaner the key, more natural it will be. Next on tab is power windows. If you want to isolate particular section, you can use these tools. We've got different default shapes here: circle, freehand, gradient. Let me add little blue. As you can see, only the parts inside the circle is getting affected. Invert button next to it, it does opposite. Whatever correction we do here, it does not affect inside the window. Always use softness so that it takes the artificial look away. Choose the shapes as per requirement. Next tab is tracking. Tracking works with the shapes. Let me track this. You can either track forward or track backward. It's as simple as that. This is very powerful and saves a lot of time. Next tab is blur tab. Increasing the value blurs the image. Decreasing the value shortens the image. We will talk about this tab later. Next tab is meant for sizing. You can zoom the shot, pan it, tilt it, rotate it, or even flip it.